Hello YouTube. Today we're going to be working on a fly rod grip for an 8-weight fly rod. This fly rod will be having a full wells grip as opposed to a half wells grip. Those are two different types of traditional shapes for fly rod grips. It's not the only things you can do, they're just somewhat common. A full wells grip is traditionally flared at the ends and then a bulge section in the middle with two recesses about 3/4 and 1/4 up the grip. This will give you a nice section to really grip onto while you're throwing the rod. The first step of the grip making process is to decide how long your grip's going to be and then glue your cork rings together. When you purchase cork rings, they'll come in this sort of pre-cut diameter, outside diameter. Typically it's about 1.25 inches, and then usually it'll have a center hole drilled, which depending on your mandrel size, in this case I'm using a 3/8 mandrel, you might have to bore out a little bit so it fits on your mandrel. But at that point you'd simply take your cork rings together and then glue each section with a preferred glue. Sometimes it's epoxy, sometimes it's a waterproof wood glue, which this is the case for this grip. And then you're going to clamp it once all the rings are together. You're going to clamp it so that you get a nice tight bond between every ring, which will help for the longevity of the grip. One of the things I like to do prior to gluing the rings together is try and match up the shape of the rings. As you can see, they're not all centered here. It'd be too simple if everything was perfect when you put it all together the first time. So I'll try and match up the rings so that I kind of get the shape I'm looking for, knowing that rings that are mostly off-centered like that one, they're going to be at a point in the grip that I'm going to grind away most of the material anyway. That way I'm not limited at this point to the diameter that I have to shave down just to get a smooth grip. Now that the grip has dried overnight, it is ready to be turned down on the lathe. I like to use a lathe for two reasons. One is, as opposed to the rod building machine, it can get much higher RPM. It's also got a lot more torque. I can typically do work a little bit faster this way. Also, the rod building machine isn't really designed to be a lathe. It can be a lathe, but it's not designed to be, and as a result you can kind of introduce some unnecessary wear on your rod building machine. And then also, and probably more importantly, I like to keep dirty things in dirty areas and clean things in clean areas. So this process creates a lot of dust, a lot of debris, and if I can keep that away from the area where I build and ultimately epoxy, that means that there's less likely of dirt getting into my epoxy. So without further ado, let's get started. We now have finished the shape of the full wells grip. I elected to go slightly thinner on the forward end of the grip. This will be towards the tip, and this will be the reel seat down here. The only reason why I do that, I think it feels better to hold the rod like that with a slightly skinnier diameter at your pointer finger and thumb when you're holding the rod. The only other thing I didn't do on this grip, which sometimes you will do on other fly rod grips depending on the type of reel seat you have, is create a recess in the reel seat end of the grip so that it can actually slide over the upper hood of your reel seat. The seat that I'm putting on this rod has a finished hood, so it's not designed to be underneath your cork. But if you did have that type of seat, you would have to take your, well, actually a different tool and get in there and cut a diameter inside of your cork so that it can slip over the hood of your reel seat. You can do that either on the lathe if you have the right tools, or you can put it on a drill press, center it on your bit, and then get the proper diameter Forstner bit and create your recess. The final steps of creating this grip and putting it on the rod is to bore it out, and also I like to cork seal my grips. It makes the grip slightly more rough to the touch. It's really nice and smooth and soft right now, but this will absorb dirt a lot quicker than a cork grip with Cork Seal on it. Cork Seal is just a coating you brush on, and then it kind of soaks in and then you wipe it off. And it doesn't change the look too much. It'll typically darken the cork because it's effectively wet, but it'll help the longevity of the cork. So that's what I will do with this grip. Bore it out, put it on the rod, and we'll be done.